So one of the many dance forms that my mother had me doing was tap dancing. I'm actually second generation tap dancer as well, because when my mother was in the circus, she was a tap dancer, as well as, many other things. And I think that's also why she was such a brilliant finger cymbal player, was because of her percussive ear. But my mom threw me into tap dance at a very young age, and I loved it, and I grew up with it, and I went through many different stylizations of tap, from watching old Hollywood films from the 1940s to, of course, the Nicholas Brothers, to then what was happening actually here in the Bay Area. There was a lot of hoofers here in the Bay Area, and I was in a really, really wonderful pocket. But what happened here in the late 70s, around the same time that I was actually creating my format, was there was the birth of Boogaloo, breakdance, hip-hop, what became known as hip-hop, breakdancing. And it was just what was happening in the young urban culture. You saw it everywhere. You went to Fisherman's Wharf, you saw it on every corner. You went to Oakland, you saw it on every corner. It was just happening. It was really, really strong here, West Coast and East Coast. And it was what my generation, the young generation, was aspiring to move like. I had gone to a tap dance show, and this was, again, probably late 79. And I was sitting in the audience, and it was wonderful, like Bay Area tap dancers. And in the middle of the show, they had a guest group called the Gentlemen of Production. And I'm sitting in the audience, and all of a sudden, these 5 men came out from the side of the stage, and they were moving and locking and popping and doing moves that I'd never seen before with control I'd never seen before. So I couldn't wait for the show to be over, and I just ran backstage, and I was looking for the director of the company, and I walked up to the group, and I said, "Excuse me, who's the director? Can I talk to the director, please?" And these guys turned around and looked at me like I was crazy. And they were like, "Yeah, well, who wants to know?" And I was like, "Oh, I really would like to study." And out from behind walked up to me, very, very scary, Walter Freeman. And Walter Freeman said, "Why, for who? You?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm a dancer, and I just really loved your material. I'd really like to learn your style." And I think he just thought I was absolutely ridiculous. So he set a price that was very high at the time for teaching private lessons, and I agreed. And I was very, very determined. And he could not have me coming into his neighborhood of Oakland. So he would actually BART in and come to my house, where I had a home studio at the time, and he would teach me weekly classes. Well, I was actually a very good student, and I was picking up really, really quickly. And actually, I was sharing with him the knowledge that I was learning from breaking down and creating my format, and he was sharing with me this whole new way of moving and doing isolations. So we had never really had the type of isolations that we do now in belly dance ever before. The kind of hard contraction movements, the types of hard soft contraction movements. And so this is what I was creating at the time because of my influence and work with Walter Freeman. And him and I loved dancing together. We're actually still friends to this day. And Walter ended up on Broadway, performing with Riverdance for 10 years as the tap and pop locker in the show. And him and I have such a great rapport and relationship because we hear dance and movement the same. But it was my work with Walter Freeman and the knowledge that I got from him and what was happening in the streets and what was really happening in movement during the late 70s, early 80s that really influenced what I brought into my format. all the hard contractions, squares, isolation movements that we now use so easily today. It's because of myself and Walter Freeman and the gentleman of production.